fans, it's Walt. I promised you yesterday that a second video is coming up featuring, well, a lot of other purchases that I made from October through December. And it's this stack of books, pretty thick one, and I'm still not completely finished with everything that everything that piled up in the last weeks. So this is mainly indie books and a few Marvel legacies. I wanted to get back into my old Marvel love. I'm a Marvel fanboy. I grew up on Marvel, I love Marvel, but it's a difficult relationship right now for many of us. But let me first finish off my DC box. And let me start with, well, it's 3 books by Tom King, so it's basically a Tom King special. It's Mr. Miracle, number 3 and 4, and Batman 36. But I will start with Mr. Miracle, which I finished yesterday, number 3 and 4, and 2 things that I noticed. And kind of one of the things that I noticed is a good one. The other one, I'm not sure. So when this will be collected, Tom King is using, and Mitch Gerards, the artist, they're using a certain technique, the technique of repetition, and through repetition creating a rhythm to the whole storytelling, which is very, very strong on one side and very interesting when used sparingly, I think. But I'm not so sure what will happen when when we will have like 200 pages of this kind of how can I put it? It's kind of a stop and go, It's a very rhythmic thing. It's like techno music in a way, but it's a very harsh techno music, which in small doses can create euphoria, but over a longer period of time, it can create monotony. And while I really enjoyed both issues on different levels, I'm a bit unsure how this will turn out when finished. But I don't want to be skeptic, because this is definitely one of the best books of the year. And the reason for it, and now we come to the good part, is that the atmosphere and the way the characters communicate with each other is completely unique. I haven't read anything like this, not in superhero comics, but just in comics in general. It's a very stylized, but at the same time very natural way of communication. It's jumping from scene to scene. It's a little bit like a TV show or a movie, and it's very, very precise on every scene, and the whole thing as such you have to create in yourself or with your thoughts. You have to make the connections between those little scenes, which normally are comprised of 1 page or a spread page, a double spread page. So this is very interesting, and I see that a lot of thought went into this, and I'm really eager to continue reading, and I also want to find out what is going on, because it's not very clear, but it's not unclear in a frustrating way. It's unclear in a very teasing and creative way, and I have a lot of respect for what they're trying to achieve with this series. The only downside being, maybe you can overdo tricks, or you can overdo things that are good, and they can turn on you. And this is also the problem that I mostly have with Tom King's Batman. I've started it, I've read the first 12, 13 issues, and I just wasn't very impressed, and I felt that the cleverness of the story structure and the way it's told often was getting in the way of enjoying just telling a story. It felt a little bit mathematical to me, and this is also still true for this issue, which is the beginning of Super Friends, a super fun issue, I have to say. It was very enjoyable, but again here, it's a story about symmetry. It's a story about the fact that Superman and Batman are two alpha males who don't really know how to communicate with each other and how to tell each other how much they like each other. So they need, of course, their female counterparts to tell them, come on, just give the other guy a call. Batman was engaged. Batman and Catwoman are now engaged, and Superman, Clark Kent, still hasn't called up his old buddy to congratulate him. So this is the story. It's basically a soapy kind of interlude, which is a lot of fun. But then we have, again, the very, very clever parts where, it's a symmetry, where it's told in parallel, how to put it, it's told parallelly, and here is Superman and there's Batman, and they're doing the same things, and they are thinking the same things about the other person, and it's playing on this whole thing that they're very similar, and they're a mirror of each other, and they admire each other so much, and there's a nice payoff in the end, which was a lot of fun. But also the dialogue, it always feels a little bit too calculated and too stiff for its own good. So that's the problem with Tom King. He's a genius, but he should restrain himself. All right, let's continue with Marvel Legacy. So there was a lot of talk about Marvel in the past year, and I didn't say much about it because, when you don't read the comics, what is there to comment? And I don't want to bitch about any business decisions that Marvel Enterprises is taking, and I don't really care. There are so many fantastic books out there. If Marvel isn't delivering, no problem. You can still buy a lot of really good comics. So yeah, that's what I have to say about the past year of Marvel. The other thing is, and this is where it's getting a bit tricky, when I decide to buy Marvel, it has been often the case that I felt somehow ripped off as a customer. So I didn't get any reward from the publisher. I'm not talking about the stories or the creation itself, but about the quality of the books. I was already bitching about the fact that they basically don't have covers anymore. It's like the same paper inside and outside the book. There is the fact with the whole $5 first issues, and every second issue feels like a special. I don't care about variants. I don't have to buy them. But if I just want to read one series and I have to churn out either $8 a month because it's a bi-weekly, which costs $4, or if I have to churn out $10 for an anniversary issue, like they did with Spider-Man, where I got into Spider-Man. There was a crossover first, which was annoying because I missed out on different chapters of it, and then there was a $10 book, and I was like, okay, I'm out again. Okay, so having said that, I'm giving Marvel another shot, and those are my thoughts regarding Punisher the Platoon. It's not a legacy book, but in a way it is, because it's Punisher written by Garth Ennis, and the art is by Pavlov Gerlov, I think is his name, or is it something that I made up? No, it's Goran Parlov. Sorry. Sorry, Gorlan. It's a war book. Only Garth Ennis is able to tell. This is the kind of comic that, whether it's Frank Castle or whoever it is, it's just a Garth Ennis war book. And if you enjoy war stories, I don't think there is any contemporary writer who can do this better than Garth Ennis. Sometimes I'm a bit lost because there is a lot of insider language used, army language, or just like super slang, which I just don't get. But I assume is part of the charm of the whole thing. And the art was fantastic. I really enjoyed it, and I wanted to look up what Goran, I already forgot his name again, what Goran Parlov used to do in the past. I know the name, but I just don't have any association with it. It's a nice book. I enjoyed it. I will probably get it in a collected form. And if you're into Punisher, this is a very mature reader's kind of Punisher book. So if that's for you, great. Now on to the more classic legacy books. So I started with Avengers 672. I think they're already like 1 or 2 numbers ahead now. And this was a very frustrating read. It's, it's supposed to be an entry point for new or lapsed readers, and it's dealing with stuff that I couldn't care less about. Something about the champions and the Avengers being a bit hostile towards each other, and it's like cleaning up after some big event. And then I was thrown into this cleanup, and then I found out that we're heading for the next event in a month or so. So where I have to buy a weekly Avengers book. They release it on a weekly basis, so it's $16 a month just to read an Avengers book. And I'm out again. I don't get it, frankly. So it's not a success. Definitely not. Okay, I'm not all negative, I will say, because I really enjoyed Thanos number 13. So it's legacy, why ever? Because it's not, there's not much of a legacy to the Thanos comic mythos, but it's a interesting new series about an omnipotent being, Thanos, who is probably pretty difficult to write. If you have like Galactus and all those beings who are basically like absolute gods, it's really hard to make them interesting. And I think Donny Cates understood that. And I don't want to spoil too much. So if you don't want to be spoiled at all, maybe you should just skip this little part. Because of course, there is only one challenge for Thanos. And it is Thanos himself. So this is what we will be dealing with in this arc, the beginning arc of Donny Cates. It's Thanos against a future version of himself. This is how I understood it, at least. And there is a fun character introduced here who is kind of a galactic version of Ghost Rider. So yeah, if you enjoy Silver Surfer, not the quirky one by Orred, but the old school, heroic and grandiose one, this is a book in this vein. It's galactic adventure, and it's more serious version of it. Sorry, it's still early in the morning. I'm not really on track. Next up, The Amazing Spider-Man 7, 8, 9, and this was a lot of fun. I know people are very critical of Dan Slott. I guess not because of his creations, but of his online persona. I really don't know much about and don't care much about, because he can write very quirky dialogues. He can build a plot, and he's just a fun writer to have on a book like Amazing Spider-Man. And I don't think there are a lot of people who can pull this off, you know, and it's always people who fans are bitching about. The other one being Brian Michael Bendis. And I don't really understand the dynamics that is going on there, but it seems that it's hard to be a beloved Spider-Man writer. So the story is, after the last big arc, overarching arc of Spider-Man and his big startup company, who basically took the world by surprise and was a big hit, Spider-Man is back to his roots. It's like always with superhero comics. There is a change and there is the reverse change. And we are now at the more conservative reverse change. Spider-Man back to his roots. He's a loser again. He has a lot of self-doubts. He's living with Mockingbird, staying at her place. There is a little fling going on with her. And it was just a lot of fun to read this. It felt like familiar ground. It still felt fresh, which is, I think, a great thing to pull off. And if you like Spider-Man, the character, this is a great entry point. Well done, Marvel. This is how you do it. Same here. Another winner for me was All New Wolverine. I have the first paperback by Tom Taylor. Still haven't read it, but I'm really eager to do it. This is a really well told story about, well, it's getting very complicated. I can't really explain to you how many Wolverines are existing right now and who is the clone of whom, but I can tell you that the former X-23 is Wolverine's daughter. And there is a younger clone of her, and there is Dakin, who is his son, but I don't know, from the future or something, I don't know. So it's a family of Wolverines, which sounds pretty stupid, I know, but if it's written well, if it's in capable hands, and I also really like the art, then who cares, you know? I really don't care for original origins. If you think about the whole origins of old school superheroes from Marvel from the 60s, they are totally stupid. So you just need a good writer to give those characters a bit of depth and relevance, and the conflicts to become real. And yeah, Tom Taylor delivered here, and I'm up for more. It's really cool. Next is Captain America 695. This is Mark Waid and Chris Samnee's takeover of Captain America. So you know them from Daredevil. Then they had a short run on Black Widow, which I wasn't very impressed by. It felt a bit by the numbers and stale. And Mark Waid had already 2 stints, I think, if not 3, on Captain America. I can't say that I remember them. I probably read some part of it, if not a good part of it. Captain America used to be one of my favorite Marvel heroes, and he still is. But like Superman, he's not easy to write. The idea of him being a great hero and of his series being a great comic is very present in my mind. But I think it's difficult to pull it off. And especially in those very political times, Captain America has to be a political book. I mean, it's Captain America. It's everything everything around him deals with the moral issues of a country, and it's because it's the dominant country in the whole world. It's basically dealing with where are we heading towards as a world, what are our values, how do we want to live with each other. And this didn't feel completely fresh. It's kind of a rehash of Captain America beating up Nazis and people remembering him for the hero that he is, which in a way is touching, and it's well done and well told, obviously. I mean, those are comic masters we're talking about here, great creators, but I didn't feel the urge to continue reading this. I mean, maybe I felt the urge to get out some Marvel Epic Collection and read some old stories, but there was nothing surprising about it, and nothing intriguing. So for me, it's not a winner. It's not a loser either. You decide. Then Vincible Iron Man 593. It's the search for Tony Stark Part 1. So we're getting back to the legacy character of Tony Stark. It's written by Brian Michael Bendis, but maybe written, I mean, it is written. I don't want to trash him, but it's really weakly written. You can see that he's done. He's done with this character, and I think it's, now that we know that he will move over to DC, this feels even stranger that he is responsible for the kind of a relaunch of the book. This doesn't feel like a fresh start. It's again a lot of cleanup, a lot of exposition, a lot of explanations, and the last 3 or 4 pages a new story starts. So I'm a bit sorry to have paid $4 for 4 pages, because I really don't care about all the stuff that goes before that. I really don't. I don't want to have a recap. They do those recaps normally, by the way. This is for new readers, it's a fun little thing. 2 to 3 pages, or it's always 3, I think. And they're always written by Robbie Thompson, and drawn by different artists. And it's kind of a recap of what the character's origin is and what he's all about, so that you can jump right into the legacy feeling. But then please start with a new story. Make me excited for what's coming up. This was very lazy and not well done. And lastly, Doctor Strange, also a Donny Cates book. He's now the new secret weapon of Marvel Comics. And it's also written, it's also drawn by Gabriel Hernandez Walter of The Vision. And I love The Vision, especially the art in The Vision. And so I was very excited about this. And it's interesting, it's intriguing. I'm probably not the biggest Doctor Strange and magical, mystical stuff fan of this kind of storytelling. But this was cute. And Loki has inherited the role of the Sorcerer Supreme. So it's a bit weird. We're going into legacy, but then this time it's the other change. So it's not the conservative getting back to the roots, but well, why don't we try this kind of change? And I don't mind. This could be fun. Donny Cates, I'm still not completely convinced that he's this uber writer that everyone's hyping him to be, but it was an enjoyable read, definitely. And I might be back for more. Not sure yet. So that's Marvel right now. A few winners, also a few losers. It's still not feeling like they're knowing what they're doing. Maybe now with Cybulski taking over as the chief operative of, or what is his title? I don't know, chief publisher or whatever. Maybe some things will change, and I would love to have a more a clearer version of what the Marvel Universe is about, and also to create, like DC did, little niches where different authors can do their thing and do really individual takes on characters. But right now it feels like you have to sample everything to find the little nuggets. It's really hard to guess where the good stuff is hidden. All right, on to another another publisher that emerged, or it's just an imprint by IDW, but it's a whole new endeavor. It's Black Crown, exactly. This is an imprint by Shelley Bond. Shelley Bond used to work for Vertigo for the longest time, I think 20 years or so, or maybe even longer. So she's of this great era everyone still remember so well, the era of the British invasion, of Neil Gaiman, Grant Morrison, Peter Milligan and such, who created a lot of very remarkable and sometimes even legendary runs on comics. So the expectations are quite high, at least for me. And I was really happy that the first series they're launching with, it's an ongoing, it's called Kid Lobotomy, and it's written by Peter David. And you can see that, I love this cover by the way, it's fantastic. So you can see that this is Peter Milligan without any kind of restraints, so which is a good thing, because I've read a lot of bad Peter Milligan comics over the years, but there are also like some really fantastic ones. He's one of my favorite writers actually, and this one here is a bit hard to explain. It's basically a family story about a brother and his stepsister sharing or managing a hotel where a lot of super weird people are checking in. The protagonist himself is a bit weird. He has a very strong thing for his sister, and she's a bit of a sadist who's using him because she knows she has the power over him. So it's a very sick and twisted psychology which is going on here, and it's definitely a book about madness on different levels. I don't know what to make of it yet, so if you want to have a recommendation, it would be to wait for the trade actually, because I can't tell you what's going on yet, which is not necessarily a bad thing. I still want to continue reading it, but I'm not sure this will turn out into something that is worth your time. If you like weird comics per se, then check it out. They also released a quarterly, which is basically a concept also introduced at Vertigo. I remember The Winter's Edge, I think it was the first one in this vein, where different series are teased, some exclusive content is produced for it, but it's basically an more ambitious, I don't know if it's more ambitious, it's like an Image Plus, this magazine by Image Comics, where you get interviews with the creators, you get some previews of the comics, and there is some exclusive content in here, but it's really not very good. And the previews you can have online, and the articles are okay, but this is a $7 book. Just skip it. It's not worth your time. I would recommend that you get the next first issues. The one is Assassinistas, and the other one is Punk's Not Dead. They look very promising, and yeah, I'm happy that Shelley Bond has found a new publisher, and I'm always happy for new weird dark twist comics. Okay, on to some other indie books. Oh, this came out a while ago, Fujitsu #1. Didn't enjoy it too much. The concept sounded fun, but this was like a fantasy action book. There's not much to say about it. Also, I don't really have any time left to talk about it. Eternity #1 was very meta. It's a sci-fi meta comic drawn beautifully, but by Trevor Hairsine, who is not able to draw little children. I mean, he's supposed to be a baby, by the way, which is a bit weird, I think. But other than that, I really love the whole op art that is going into it, and look at those pages, they're beautiful. So I was sucked into it. Everything is still hinted at. It's very mysterious and very grandiose and very solemn, and I like this kind of books. But if you're into storytelling, there is not much story going on yet. Alright, this is from Valiant Comics. Great production values also, by the way. Evolution is another Skybound / Image book, which was released recently, I think a few weeks ago, 1 or 2 weeks ago, I'm not sure. However, it's a horror book. It's kind of a buddy horror book about a virus that is spreading and evoluting, and well, I don't know, I wasn't very impressed by it. A lot of horror cliches collected or assembled by a body of authors, 5 authors or so. Well, and there's this thing where they speak German in American comics, and it's driving me crazy. I mean, I shouldn't complain. I know my English is far from perfect, but I don't print it and sell it to other people, okay? So if you feel the urge to let your character speak German, untranslated, by the way, so I don't know, are you supposed to Google this afterwards? You can do reverse Googling, because it's obviously Google Translate they're using here. And all the creators that are watching this and who need a German lector just to look over your text, please shot me a mail and give me your text and let me have a glance at it, because it's really embarrassing and it's throwing me off. But it's not the problem it's not the main problem that I have with this book. I also didn't really enjoy the art. I feel it has something very, it reminded me of illustrations in school books. It's not very dark, or it's not sucking you into it. It has more the character of children's book, which could be interesting, but somehow it isn't. I mean, it's nice. It's very well done. It's not that he can't draw. I don't think it's a good match for the story. That's all. Other than that, if you're into horror books and very classic genre books, you also have all those characters. The nun, the mad kind of / scientific guy, mad doctor, scientific guy. It's full of cliches, and if you enjoy them done in a capable way, you might enjoy this too. Doppelganger #1. This is by a very interesting publisher. They're called Alterna Comics. They're released through Alternative Comics, which is an underground independent publisher. and they're only 150, and they're done by, I guess, people who just wanna print a comic. They just wanna call themselves comic creators, but obviously beginners. They're not super professional. I have to say though, this was the most professional book that I read by them. I read a few already. I wasn't impressed by the other ones, but this one was really well done. Well told. Not perfectly told. There are a few things towards the end where I thought, well, this is a bit rushed, but the whole the way he's getting at how this guy is meeting his doppelganger is really cool. It's kind of slice of life meets horror, and I really enjoyed it. And it's 150, so it is possible to print comics for 150. You probably don't make money on it, but it is possible. All right, I have to really hurry up because I still want to talk about one special book here. So I will wrap this up really fast now. Eleanor and the Egret was a super fun, extremely weird comic, which was beautiful and surprising and goofy and sweet. And if you enjoy Sam Keith or John Layman, two great creators, be sure to buy the trade. It's worth your time. It's kind of an all ages book for grown-ups. Really, really cool. Great stuff. Also pretty great, Long Lost #1 by Scout Comics, another new publisher. This is a beautifully drawn book. Looks like, you know, like you're a bit more like a graphic novel and less like a horror serial, but it turns out that maybe it's both. I really, really enjoyed this, and I'm looking forward to getting more, and I will talk more about it when I get the second issue. All right. Hey guys, I'm sorry I had to interrupt the video. I'm still not finished with all my comics, and I had to leave for work where I'm right now. So this means another part tomorrow where I will talk about probably just one comic, but there's a lot to say about it. So thanks for watching this, and see you tomorrow. Bye bye.